close my eyes and the earth is carried away by the river.
Well, classically, ayahuasca comes from it was used across Pan-Amazonia um, as a tool for healing and as a sacrament to initiate people into various mysteries, to understand their environment, the forest. And remember, the forest was like everything to the indigenous peoples in the Amazon. So a very deep and intimate understanding was crucial to their survival. But more than an understanding of the physical dimensions of the forest, the ayahuasca gave them a multi-dimensional awareness of their environment. And in those ways, then they were probably more advanced than we are, even though on a technological and physical level, they lived very simply. Ayahuasca itself is made up of two plants. Classically, they use the woody liana vine, which is usually about as thick as a man's wrist, and grows almost like two serpents entwining around each other, or like the DNA helix, in fact. And the other plant is called Psychotria viridis, otherwise known as chacruna. And the indigenous peoples of the Amazon knew about the very special chemistry and synergy of these two plants together, because one, if you take either separately, very little happens. If you take the ayahuasca, you get a very mild soporific effect, that's the vine. And if you take the chacruna, nothing, in fact, will happen. It depends upon the properties of the alkaloids that exist within the ayahuasca in order to activate the alkaloids within the chacruna. And science only really found out about this mechanism of what they call MAO inhibition, or monoamine oxidase inhibition, which is involving the calibration of an enzyme within the stomach. It inhibits that enzyme and then allows the alkaloid dimethyltryptamine, or otherwise known as DMT, to enter into the brain. So physically, ayahuasca is a drink made of these two plants, and it was used across Pan-Amazonia by virtually all of the tribes, even though most of those tribes had never physically come into contact with each other. And without exception, all of those tribes, with their vast understanding of the various cornucopia of healing herbs that exist within the jungle, put ayahuasca at the very top. They call it Madre Ayahuasca. It's the mother of all herbs. And through the ayahuasca, the indigenous peoples were able to understand and learn about all the other various herbs and trees and shrubs and healing agents that exist within the jungle. So to answer your question, in short, the ayahuasca is something that was used by the indigenous people to understand their environment and to open up their multidimensional awareness of their environment. It was also used, similar potions were also used elsewhere in the world and at different parts of our human history. Similar alkaloids wasn't called ayahuasca. For example, the Soma cults in northern India in the ancient Vedic days, they used something very similar, using different plants. And also the Sufi cults and the Mithraic traditions in Persia. So, in other words, this potion sacrament, or these alkaloids, which are actually also found endogenously within the body, in the pineal gland and in the cerebrospinal fluid, have been active in the evolution of human consciousness for a long time. Yeah. Well, that's very difficult to predict. What one can say generally is that it is a psychoactive medicine. And I call it a medicine because it's not, as some people think, a drug. A drug is something that has very predictable effects. If you take MDMA, for example, you can predict pretty much what's going to happen. Or if you smoke a joint or drink alcohol, you can predict what's going to happen. The neurotransmitters that I mentioned earlier that exist within the brain, that is DMT, and also phenylaline, which is very similar to harmaline, which exists in the ayahuasca, already exist within the brain and are responsible for a lot of our dream activity at night and lucid dreaming and also for opening up the frontal lobes in what we sometimes call extrasensory perception. So what people can expect is as vast an array or a spectrum as the whole spectrum of human behavior. Um, what essentially, how ayahuasca acts is it's like a portal into the astral realms or into the invisible worlds, what the indigenous peoples call the world of the spirits. And ayahuasca itself, the word means, aya means rope or vine, and huasca means to the deceased souls or to the spirits. So it's a rope or a pathway to the spirit world of the spirits. So it's a portal to the astral realms. Um, Once one has opened this portal, the whole spectrum of existence is available. So what a person can expect when they drink it is, yes, they will experience a visionary state through the ingestion of these alkaloids, but the actual manifestation of that visionary state, or the ramification of that visionary state, has a lot to do with other factors. That is, the mindset of the person that's ingesting it, their beliefs, their ideas, their worldview, the way they feel about themselves and their environment. It also has to do with where they are, where they're taking it, set and setting. Like, if you take it in a surgery in a hospital, you can expect very different results than if you take it in a garden. Do you know understand what I'm saying? So there are other factors involved in what a person can expect apart from the actual drink itself. But in general, one can say that it will open oneself up to the inner worlds, and it will open up the visionary eye, what some people call the third eye. It will open up inner vision. How the healing occurs is when one ingests ayahuasca. In the jungle, they call ayahuasca, affectionately, it's known as la purga, the purge. In other words, most people can expect to purge, to vomit, to either it comes out this way or out the lower gate, because ayahuasca is excellent at cleansing the body of toxins, any accumulated dross. For example, in the jungle, it's highly prized as a way of managing parasites, flukes, worms, and so on. So it gets rid of physical toxins. And the shamans say that it's responsible for their good health and their long life. For example, the average life expectancy in the jungle is about 50, not much more than 60, because of the nature of the jungle and its environment. It's a pretty inhospitable place in terms of a lot of, worms, flukes, all of these things, parasites. But the shamans classically live to 90, 100 because they're cleansing themselves of these physical toxins. The second way it works is on a psychic or an emotional and mental level, where it can rid oneself of all kinds of, dross, psychic detritus, rubbish that we've accumulated through our conditioning and through what I would call wrong living against the way of nature. So in the purge itself, apart from cleansing the physical body and the stomach from all kind of toxins, there's actually a letting go, a shaking off of any psychic material that is not actually serving you. So the purge itself can be seen like a little mini catharsis. A catharsis is where you dump something, you let go of something. And really the whole experience of ayahuasca is about let go. It's about surrender. It's about letting go of all that is no longer necessary. Stuff you've been carrying around for a long time that you don't even know that you're carrying around anymore until you let go of it. And then when you let go of it, there's more space for consciousness to be there, rather than caught up in holding on to all these things. So what ayahuasca does, how it heals, is by stretching the envelope of comfortability. Never more than you can handle. She knows intimately well what you can deal with, but she will always stretch the envelope and stretch the zone of comfortability to allow more consciousness to come in. So that's the way she heals. And to answer the second part of your question, who is this medicine good for? I would say it's a good question because it's not for everybody. I don't feel it's for everybody.